where every silence hides a secret. Here, we don't glorify crime, we unmask it. Each episode takes you deep into the minds of real gangsters, men who built empires on loyalty, fear, and fate, and lost it all the same way. From quiet dons to ruthless street legends, every story here is told with truth, tension, and the calm before the gunshot. So pour yourself a drink, dim the lights, and let's step back into the world where every whisper could be your last. They used to say Bugsy Siegel never feared the dark, but the truth was stranger than that. He feared calm nights, because calm nights meant someone, somewhere, was planning something. And Bugsy always assumed he was the target. Brooklyn, 1912. A 10-year-old boy walks down a cramped street with a chipped marble in his pocket and a head full of fire. Benjamin Siegel, skinny shoulders, sharp eyes, always watching. His family had come from nothing, and nothing is exactly what he promised he'd never be. He ran errands for older boys, carried messages no kid should ever hear, and learned early that fear made people move faster than respect. One day, an older kid shoved him against a brick wall and laughed. Bugsy didn't argue. He just stared back and said quietly, "You'll remember my name one day." That focus, that cold certainty, it wasn't madness. It was ambition wearing a child's face. Years later, people would swear he was born wild. But no, he was shaped by hunger, by alleys filled with men who took what they wanted, and by a world that rewarded the bold. And Bugsy planned to be the boldest of them all. But the first step toward power would come from a friendship nobody saw coming. Lower Manhattan, late afternoon. The sounds of pushcarts, yelling vendors, and trolley bells blended into a restless city song. Bugsy Siegel, now a lean teenager with fast hands and a faster temper, moved through it like he owned the pavement. But behind that rough edge was something most people never noticed. He was loyal to the few he trusted, almost to a fault. That trust showed the day he met Meyer Lansky. They first crossed paths near Hester Street after Bugsy caught a group of boys cornering a quiet, bookish kid. Most would have walked away. Bugsy didn't. He stepped in, shoved the ringleader back, and muttered, "Pick on someone who can hit back." Later he learned the kid was Meyer, small, brilliant, and dangerous in a completely different way. Where Bugsy was fire, Meyer was ice. Where Bugsy moved fast, Meyer calculated every angle. Together they formed a balance New York didn't know it needed. Bugsy admired one thing most: Meyer never raised his voice. He didn't have to. Violence is loud, Meyer once told him. Power is quiet. Those words stuck. Bugsy wasn't just a hot-headed street kid anymore. He was learning rules, real rules. Strategy. Brotherhood. Vision. And soon, that vision would push them both far beyond street corners, straight into the heart of organized crime. New York nights were changing. Street crews were growing into something bigger, leaning toward structure, influence, real money. Bugsy felt it in his bones. He and Meyer were no longer just kids running messages. They were building a reputation, step by step, dollar by dollar. They started with protection rackets. Small shops, scared owners, no real organization, until Bugsy added one rule: if they pay once, they stay protected forever. Loyalty, not fear. It worked. Money flowed cleaner, faster. By the time Prohibition hit, opportunity hit with it. That was the moment when the streets transformed into gold. Speakeasies popped up in basements, backrooms, old warehouses. Bugsy became the man who made sure liquor moved safely from source to glass. He wasn't the biggest, but he was the one people trusted not to panic under pressure. One cold night, as he and Meyer walked across the East River docks, Meyer said quietly, "This won't be small forever." Bugsy nodded. "Then let's build something big." And just like that, their rise began, smooth, organized, deliberate. The kind of rise where older men took notice. The kind of rise that brought them closer to powerful figures like Lucky Luciano and the new American Mafia. But power always brings a price, and Bugsy was about to pay it in ways he never expected. Manhattan, early 1930s. The city felt different now, less wild, more organized. Bugsy Siegel wasn't running corners anymore, he was shaping systems. With Meyer and Lucky Luciano beside him, the old, chaotic gangs were fading, replaced by something sharper, cleaner, more controlled, the Commission. Bugsy thrived in this new order. He carried himself with a calm confidence, dressed sharp, spoke softly, and let his presence do the heavy lifting. People said he had two gears, charm and danger. And he switched between them without warning. During meetings, he rarely raised his voice. He didn't need to. He would lean back, tap a finger on the table, and say, "Let's keep things smooth. Smooth makes money." And the room listened. He managed hits, territories, smuggling routes, always with precision. Even men twice his age treated him with a strange mix of respect and caution. Bugsy wasn't just feared, he was trusted. That mattered more to him than any weapon he carried. In these prime years, he felt untouchable. The money was steady, the alliances solid, the streets quiet under his watch. He had climbed from alley dust to a seat at the top table. But quiet doesn't last long in the underworld. And somewhere inside that calm, the first cracks were beginning to form. Los Angeles, late 1930s. Sunshine, studio lights, palm trees, Bugsy loved it all. The city felt clean, glamorous, full of space to breathe. He handled West Coast operations for the mob, mixing with actors, producers, and millionaires who adored his confidence. But success has a way of sharpening shadows. Whispers began first. Small things. Rumors that Bugsy was spending too much, acting too wild, losing focus. Meyer heard them. Lucky heard them. Everyone did. But nobody wanted to confront him, yet. Bugsy brushed it off. "People talk," he said, lighting a cigarette. Meyer replied softly, "They talk for a reason, Ben." The friendship that once felt unbreakable suddenly had weight in it, silent, heavy weight neither man dared name. Then came Virginia Hill, beautiful, sharp-tongued, unpredictable. Bugsy fell hard. Too hard. She took him into circles even Hollywood didn't brag about, gamblers, thieves, money men with crooked smiles. And Bugsy followed her with the same fire he once used to survive Brooklyn. But Virginia also fueled his temper. Deals slipped. Money went missing. Accounting didn't add up. Lucky called from New York, asking questions Bugsy didn't want to answer. Inside the glamour, he was drifting from the structure that once protected him. And the mob was patient, until it wasn't. By the early 1940s, the shine of Los Angeles didn't calm Bugsy anymore. It only made him restless. The FBI had started watching him, quietly, methodically, from parked cars and distant windows. Bugsy could feel their eyes even when he couldn't see them. He'd walk into the lobby of the Beverly Hills Hotel, stop mid-stride, and glance over his shoulder. Nothing obvious. Just the soft click of a camera miles away, or a name whispered on a wiretap. But he felt it. "They're everywhere," he muttered one night. Meyer sighed. "Not everywhere, Ben. Just close enough." The paranoia ran deeper than the feds. Bugsy sensed something shifting within the mob itself. Conversations grew shorter. Calls went unanswered. Even Lucky, usually steady as stone, spoke with a colder tone. Bugsy's spending, his temper, his delays in Vegas, everything was adding up against him. Virginia wasn't helping. She had secrets, debts, and friends Bugsy didn't fully trust. At night she'd say, "Relax, Benny," but her smile held things she never explained. By day, Bugsy felt hunted. By night, he felt surrounded. Not because he had enemies, he'd always had those, but because he no longer knew who counted as a friend. And soon, one mistake in the desert would push that paranoia into reality. Nevada, early 1946. The desert looked endless, open, silent, unforgiving. Bugsy stood outside what was supposed to be his masterpiece, the Flamingo. A hotel so grand, so modern, so impossible that he believed it would make him untouchable again. But the truth sat right behind all that glass and neon. The numbers were a disaster. Money vanished. Costs doubled. Builders complained. Investors panicked. And the mob, who had trusted him with millions, wanted answers Bugsy couldn't give. One evening, as the sun dropped behind the mountains, Lucky called from New York. His voice was flat, almost emotionless. "Ben, this project is bleeding us." Bugsy clenched the phone. "It just needs time." "Time," Lucky replied, "is the one thing we don't have." The Flamingo opened too early, half-finished, half-empty, a monument to pressure instead of progress. Guests left. Lights flickered. Rain leaked through ceilings. Newspapers mocked the place. Bugsy walked through the casino floor one night, the air smelling of plaster dust and burnt wiring. He paused at a roulette table, watching the wheel spin an uneven circle. For the first time, he looked tired. He knew what the mob saw now, not a visionary, but a risk. And risks, in their world, rarely lived long enough to explain themselves. Los Angeles County Jail, late 1946. The cell was small, cold, and too quiet for a man who once lived in rooms filled with music, money, and noise. Bugsy sat on the lower bunk, elbows on his knees, staring at the faint scratches carved into the wall. Names, dates, a few crude drawings, ghosts of men who'd passed through before him. For the first time in years, no one waited for his orders. No phones rang. No partners argued. No enemies lurked just beyond the doorway. Silence was his only company, and it pressed against him harder than any guard ever could. Meyer visited once. He stood on the other side of the glass, hands folded, eyes tired. "Ben, things are changing," he said softly. Bugsy forced a grin. "I'm getting out." "You know that." Meyer didn't answer. That alone said everything. Nights dragged. Bugsy replayed every decision: Vegas, Virginia, the spending, the temper. He wondered if he'd confused ambition with arrogance, if he'd stopped listening to the very people who once saved him. He'd always believed he could talk, fight, or charm his way out of anything. But this felt different. This felt final. And when the cell door finally opened, the world waiting outside wasn't the one he left behind. Sunset Strip, 1947. Bugsy was free again, but something in him had shifted. The fire was still there, but it didn't burn the same. He walked slower, talked softer. He kept to the corners of rooms instead of the center. Even Virginia noticed. "You're quieter these days, Benny," she whispered one night. Bugsy shrugged. "Noise cost me too much." He wasn't old, just worn in a way the streets recognized instantly. Men who once rushed to shake his hand now glanced away, unsure where he stood with the mob, or if he stood anywhere at all. But the Flamingo, the project that nearly broke him, was finally turning a profit. Crowds poured in. Business picked up. Everything he had predicted was now coming true, only without him. His vision lived, but it didn't need him anymore. Bugsy spent those months looking back: Brooklyn alleys, Meyer's quiet warnings, Lucky's rare smile, the nights in LA when he felt untouchable. He realized something few gangsters ever did: legends aren't made from power, they're made from the echoes people leave behind. And Bugsy's echo, for better or worse, was already moving through Las Vegas like a current. But before the world could decide what he truly meant, fate would decide for them. Beverly Hills, June 20th, 1947. Evening light settled over the quiet neighborhood, soft and gold. Inside Virginia Hill's rented home, everything felt still, too still. Bugsy Siegel sat on the living room sofa, reading a newspaper, legs crossed, the tip of his shoe moving in slow circles. He didn't look like a man waiting for anything. But deep down, he sensed something shifting in the air. He folded the newspaper, stared at the front door, then said to no one, "If they want me, they know where to find me." Moments later, through the window pane, the world answered. Gunshots, quick, precise, final. Bugsy didn't rise, didn't argue, didn't beg. It was the end written by a world he had helped build, a world that never tolerated mistakes twice. When the news broke, people whispered 1,000 theories: mob justice, betrayal, debts, jealousy. But Meyer Lansky, upon hearing the news, simply said, "Ben lived fast. And he paid fast." Today, Bugsy's name lives on in Las Vegas lights, in stories of ambition and danger, in the thin line between vision and recklessness. His legacy is both a warning and a wonder. He outlived the world he built, not in years, but in impact. If you enjoyed this calm, cinematic journey through his life, don't forget to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more true crime storytelling.